All right, so let's dive in and talk about Grants 101. This is basically everything you need to know, the basics of how the grant system works and how to get free money from the actual grant system. So let's talk about what business grants are. Well, basically, these are financial incentives, right? They're often from the government, but they also come from businesses or individual. And the whole purpose of grants is to incentivize something. And again, an example of this may be, FedEx offers a small business grant for innovation. Well, they want you to innovate and take the ideas that you have, and then they apply those ideas to be able to increase their own profitability, right? The federal government might want you to actually come and help expand an industry. A local community may want growth in a certain sector. Maybe a local town doesn't have enough businesses of a particular sort, and they want that kind of industry in their town. There's a million examples of this. But the bottom line is, never forget that a grant is an incentive, that there is a trade-off. When you hear about free money, we oftentimes may think there's a catch, but there is no catch here. The exchange is you're given free money for a grant, but the reason it's being given out is because it's an incentive to be able to get something the grant issuer wants, whether it be growth in an industry or helping or have more minorities in an industry or an area, or any one of these million examples. So typically rewards for developing areas which may need it, like city opportunity zones or industries or rural electrification purposes. So the bottom line is that we're trying to get a result, and we're giving entrepreneurs free money to try to help us get that result. That's fundamentally what grants are. So now, that being said, compensation to help historically disadvantaged groups is very common. So what we find here, and we've heard riches are in the niches, right? Well, that's kind of how grants work, is that when we look at grants are very niche specific. And what I mean by niche is they work for certain demographics that they're provided for, or certain, because we know there are incentives because of certain industries, for example. So that being said, a lot of grants really are there to basically help bring an advantage to disadvantaged groups. So when we look at underserved markets like women or minorities owned businesses, or immigrants, disabled people, ex-convicts, etc., any of these are groups that typically have a harder time of launching a business or starting a business or growing. And so you'll see a lot of grants that are very specific to certain underserved groups like this. You're also going to see, again, grants that are designed to motivate action in certain geographic areas where we're starting to see growth in a rural area, for example. Well, then grants are there to try to get businesses to come to that rural area, as another example of what we commonly see with grants. They're also out there as awards for innovation. So we look at like the IT industry or innovating in certain markets. And I talked about this just a minute ago. When we look at privately owned or publicly owned companies, they may be issuing grants because they're trying to incentivize people to be able to come up with ideas, suggestions, and innovation that helps their company actually do better. So never forget that grants are being given out as an incentive to be able to get an intended result. That's why they exist. It's not a too good to be true type of thing. There's an exchange. The exchange is you're given free money and they're getting whatever it is that they're trying to actually incentivize to get. So again, if you're looking to find free money from grants, well, then you should know that business grants give you access to the capital without repayment. That's one of the reasons that there's such a good vehicle to be able to get money to grow a business, because they actually give you 100% free access to money. It's not money that has to be paid back. They give you the opportunity to invest in your business without everything that would come if you borrowed money from an actual credit issuer or a lender, or if you even went and raised money through venture capital or through angel investing. And there's a lot of options out there. I mean, during this course, I think we're going to talk, and you're going to have access to over 1,700 grants. I mean, there's a lot of different grants out there for a lot of different purposes. So you are going to have a lot of options. So never forget that. If we dive into a grant, we talk about how it's for a minority-owned business and you're not a minority-owned business, well, don't worry about that. I'm just giving an example of one small type of grant. There's a lot of different grants for a lot of different areas. And I want to try to cover as many of these as possible, because you may be in one of those groups that you can specifically get grants for, or you may not. And we'll talk about grants grants that everybody is able to get throughout this training as well. Remember, grants get you the money, but you don't have to give up equity. It's not venture capital. It's not angel investing. You're not giving up ownership interest in your business to get the actual money. You're not offering a personal guarantee. You're not liable for the money that you're given. You don't take on any debt. So you're not indebted to anybody. And also, you don't have monthly payments to pay back. You're not paying interest and fees and all the things that are involved with borrowing money from lenders and credit issuers as well. Now, here's the great part is that there's more money out there from grants than anybody knows what to do with. There's way more available than what's ever handed out. And the reason for that is because most people don't know where to get it or how to get it. I mean, there's no shortage of free money available through grants. Like I said, we're going to talk about over 1,700 programs you can tap into. But the difficult part is to know two things. Where to go to get grants. What kind of grant are you going to get? And where do you go to get them? And we're going to do extensive training through this course to break that down. And the second thing is how do you actually succeed? Once you find the perfect grant for you, how do you go through and actually get it? What's the real thing that these grants and issuers are looking for? We're going to cover that. We're even going to give you the map of how to put together the grant proposal, the business plan, everything that you're going to need to submit to be successful. So who's eligible? Well, grants are typically designed to motivate action or fund underserved groups. This is probably one of the most important sentences that you'll see throughout this entire course. Grants are typically designed to either motivate action, right? An incentive to do something, or fund or help underserved groups. So as we're going through this course, you're going to see that the grants, really most of them fit in one of these two categories where we're trying to incentivize or motivate action, or we're trying to provide assistance to underserved groups. Now, some types of businesses that typically receive grants include nonprofits, self-help business groups, anything to do with arts like publishers, galleries, magazines, startups, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, rural-owned businesses. Look, I can go on and on with the list of people that are of groups that are typically the ones that receive grants. But as you can see by this, it fits into these two categories. We see a lot of underserved groups here. We also see motivation, right? So a rural business, we're trying to incentivize growth in that area. So what we're doing is giving free money out so business owners come into that area and create businesses, and a business then creates more people that move there to be able to work in the business. And that's what stimulates growth, for example, in communities. So these are examples of how they fit into those two different categories. Now, there's 4 different steps that you're really going to want to know about the application process for grants that we're going to cover in this course. The first is to find the best grant program. And we're going to spend a lot of time on this, because there's a lot of different types of grants. When we look at local and community grants, that's one type, in state. And then we can deal with federal. Then we deal with private grants through foundations and through privately owned, publicly owned companies typically. So we've got to be able to navigate through these to find the right grants for you. We're going to break those down into categories and cover them all individually so you can find the easiest access to grants that work for what you're trying to accomplish. The next thing is, you got to get together all that's needed to apply. We're going to talk about what they want to receive as part of you applying for a grant. We're going to talk about putting together your business plan to help you with this as well. And then you've got to also write a well thought out grant proposal. This is it. This is 80% of the process, is this one thing. Once you find the grant, you have to apply for the grant and be able to actually get it. You have to get approved. But in order to do that, it all comes down to the quality of your grant proposal. So we're going to map that out extensively during this course, because you have to know how to write out a well thought out grant proposal to succeed. Then you have to submit the grant. That's the easy part. And we're going to talk about the submitting of a grant and how you need to submit it to really stand out above the crowd and actually be able to succeed. So now you have the 101 on grants. Now it's time to start diving in and take a look at like what actual grants look like, so you can start to get an idea of these categories they fit into and the type of grants that are available for you and your business.